This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's talk about the Observer here for a minute. It's the February 16th, 1998 edition. Johnny Ace worked the WWF TV tapings in Indianapolis doing a tryout match, but they didn't come with any sort of counter proposal. From a WWF standpoint, they've put a lot of heat on Fumi Saito, the bilingual writer for Weekly Pro Wrestling, who was there to serve as both Giant Baba's interpreter and also for his knowledge of the American wrestling scene. At this point, they claim they don't want to do any negotiations if Saito is involved because they felt he was confrontational. The basic gist appears that Saito pointed out that the mainstream pro wrestling fans in Japan aren't all that familiar with the WWF wrestlers except for Vader and Ken Shamrock, who originally made their names in Japan. The only WWF television in Japan is on a satellite show that only is in 500,000 homes in the entire country, so you've got to figure at most 20,000 homes are reached each week. However, when WWF officials Gerald Briscoe and Bruce Prichard went to Japan and saw Steve Austin on the cover of several newspapers from the Tyson angle and saw wrestling magazines and where there were color photos of WWF major events, they saw things a different way. Some in the WWF felt that Baba himself went into the meeting with little to no knowledge of the WWF product or its stars, while from a Japanese standpoint, there was the same thought in regard to Briscoe and Prichard coming in with no understanding of All Japan, the Japanese wrestling business, and felt insulted by their lack of knowledge going in as to Misawa, Kawada, or Kenta Kobashi. Let's table it right now and just take a time out. What do you remember of this meeting? What was the original goal, and how did it get sideways with you guys in All Japan?
Oh, very simple. The original goal was to see if we could work together, and we had done business with other Japanese offices over there, much smaller Japanese offices over there that had paid a great deal of money to bring in WWE talent. And we wanted to, from a perception standpoint, work with one of the bigger offices. And we're looking to open up discussions with Baba since he wasn't working with an American company. New Japan was working with WCW, and we were looking to do something with All Japan where we could come in and allow them to utilize some of the WWE stars, and vice versa, that we would also take a look at some of the bigger Japanese stars as well to give them exposure in the States to benefit both companies. Fumi Saito was the translator in that meeting, and the word came back that basically no one knows anything about the WWE stars. No one knows who Undertaker is. No one knows who Steve Austin is. No one knows who The Rock is. No one knows who Shawn Michaels is. No one knows any of these talent that you're putting on here. And we were like,
huh?
Okay, because again, we did have all, the stuff that we had got over there just to see. We walked around the city just to see, what their own magazines, their own newspapers, all of their stuff that Fumi Saito was involved with. Well, the covers were all WWE guys.
Right.
Were all the guys that we were talking about.
Sure.
There weren't Japanese stars on any of those. These huge mega Japanese stars. No, the stars that were selling their magazines and their newspapers and things were WWE stars. So I'm like, you don't know any of these guys, but yet here they are in your newspaper, here they are on your magazines, and your competitors are paying us a great deal of money to bring them over for like one date. Maybe we're negotiating with the wrong people here. If you don't know them and you're not interested in them, I really don't know what we're doing here. Because we can go across the street and meet with 5 other companies and get 10 times the money.
Right.
And it just became it was a waste of time. It really was a waste of time. It was a nice trip. I love Japan. I enjoyed going over there. Didn't enjoy that experience. And then, let me tell you the next part of this story is this Fumi Saito.
Yep.
sat there and told us how he doesn't know any of these WWE stars we're trying to sell, comes to our next event, which was a SummerSlam, I believe, in New Jersey, and comes running up, and he's backstage. I'm like, why in the hell is this guy backstage, and who are all these people? He comes back and says, oh, my God, this is the biggest travel club thing we have ever done. So what do you mean? And he says, well, because I do these travel tours, where we go to WrestleMania, we go to SummerSlam, we go to Survivor Series and Rumble, and this is the biggest one we've ever done. This is incredible. This is so great. I said, well, why are they here?
Yeah.
He said, what do you mean? So well, they don't know any of these stars.
Oh God.
Why would they travel from Japan all the way over here?
Yeah.
For what? They don't know anybody. And so now it's like Steve Austin and Undertaker and a few other guys and The Rock have gotten wind that this guy's backstage, and go over, and Undertaker walks up to him and goes, hello, how are you? My name is The Undertaker. I'm a very big star over here. I know you don't know who I am, but I've kicked, and he named all the Japanese guys whose asses he's kicked in the past. And of course, Rock couldn't resist, and Rock had to go over and introduce himself. And it's just, Austin just kind of walked right by. But we were treated in a way that of insignificance. And if Bob was insulted that Vince didn't come over, well, we were highly insulted that we came over and had to deal with a guy that didn't know our product, or said he didn't know our product. And a lot of times you get people, and here's the other thing that was extremely insulting about it, was Jerry Briscoe had spent his entire career and had gone over to work for Mr. Baba many times in his career. His brother Jack made Baba NWA champion against the NWA's orders and had a great relationship with Mr. Baba. However, Mr. Baba chose not to speak English and not to communicate with us during this meeting in English at all. So that was insulting and not a good meeting in any way, shape, or form. During that time that we were there, we went out one night to go get some Korean barbecue, ran into Dr. Death and Steve Albright on the street.
Over in Japan?
In Japan.
Wow.
And my good friend Johnny Ace, who is my good friend, was like working for Baba, and he about panicked, but trying to get us into a taxi cab to get us away from Dr. Death, who I had known since he broke into the business. And I didn't know Steve Albright at the time, or Gary Albright, Steve Albright, Steve Williams, Gary Albright. But they were like, get them out of here. And I'm like, we're not here to steal your talent. We're here to work together.
Right.
So it was a little insulting. Yeah.
Let's continue the write-up from the Observer, because I know you're going to have an issue with this. Baba apparently also felt that if he was negotiating at the table as company president, then Vince McMahon should have been there as well, since he's the one, not Prichard or Briscoe, who can finalize any deals. As mentioned before, the two sides were far apart on money. WWF appears right now to be under the impression that Baba wanted their top stars at the same price he had paid for top foreigners like Stan Hansen, Steve Williams, Gary Albright, and the top WWF talent is worth far more in value in the United States to them for a weekend in the US than what that figure would be. Of course, the WWF originally came in asking for a $1 million for a package deal, maybe 8 to 12 wrestlers, which was an offer Baba apparently felt was so out of line that he didn't even respond to it with a counter. There were also others trying to work as some sort of intermediaries or go-betweens to salvage at least getting The Undertaker, Vader, and Shamrock to work the Dome show. Do you remember the offer, not even being responded to? I mean, I understand there
was no offer.
Okay.
There was no offer because the lack of knowledge of our talent and the amount of money that we were receiving from other offices in Japan, whether they were third, fourth, or fifth tier offers, they were huge money deals.
Yeah.
So when we got into it and looking at, all right, what is that cost? What are you willing, to pay? Because there was a here is what we have made for a talent here, a talent there, these different things. We're looking at not just doing one-offs with you. We're looking at possibly coming in and doing a week or doing a series of shows. And it never got to money. Never got to money. Because they said they didn't know who anybody was.
Yeah.
So how do you get to money if you don't know what you're buying?
Let's
So once again, believe it or not, that guy that wrote this is ill-informed or just made it up. Or maybe he was informed by Fumi Saito. Maybe Fumi didn't fully understand English or what have you, one side or the other.
Fumi and Dave are friends. They do podcasts together.
It figures.
So chat me up though.
Maybe that's why Fumi didn't know who anybody was.
Let me ask about the sort of insinuation that Baba was upset that McMahon wasn't there. Did you know that until I read that?
No. And again, Jerry and I were the ones that were making the international deals.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know it feels like a sidebar, all this All Japan discussion, but not too terribly long after all of this, all of a sudden, Dr. Death shows up in the WWF, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton of notice with him finishing up in All Japan. Do you remember how he comes over, and was there some sort of hurt feelings or burned bridge on the other end?
With Japan?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Steve had come in. Steve met with JR and I one night late in the office, brought him up, and we made a deal. And man, I've loved Steve. I consider Steve a friend and a hell of a talent. I thought that he was somebody that was underutilized everywhere he had been. And in coming in, we'd been after him for years, but I also understood his loyalty to Japan and his desire to work less of a schedule by going to Japan a few times a year. And so it just never worked. And at this time it happened to work. And I was very happy for that. So it was, yeah, Jim and I were definitely on the same page as far as getting him into the company.
Let's talk about JR for a moment, because JR wrote in his book, Under the Black Hat, that it wasn't just him who's keen on Dr. Death coming in, but you are. Do you remember saying, okay, perhaps things didn't work out with All Japan. Why not just get what we want? We want Dr. Death. Let's bring him over.
It had nothing to do with Japan at all. Like nothing to do with Japan. It was all about Steve.
What was your vision for Steve?
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.